My name is Julian Hill. I'm a cranial sacral therapist and core process psychotherapist based in London, and I have a long history with tinnitus. Just to tell you briefly, my tinnitus started when I was 16, and it was fairly mild, but it just gradually got worse and worse until I got to my 30s, and I had a very stressful job as a wine guide and tour manager, taking people to restaurants and wineries all over Europe. And my tinnitus went through the roof. It was really loud. It just gradually got louder and louder. And I had it for 20 years. And the last 4 years, it was screeching to the point that I really struggled to think, to hear properly. I couldn't hear the phone ring. I was an interpreter taking people around wineries, and I can remember people standing there, and the French winery would be saying, le Pinot Noir, il prend son essor. And I'd be standing there trying to interpret into English, and I would just be hearing this shh, and it just made the job untenable. And eventually I had to give up, and I couldn't work and I couldn't sleep, and I went into the really dark space that a lot of people can go into with tinnitus. And the last year, I was really desperate for help, and I waited months and months and months to see the GP and then the ENT specialist. And eventually, at long last, I got to see the ENT specialist, and he said, "Oh, you're moderately to severely deaf. You need hearing aids. And by the way, all the best to you." I said, "What about my tinnitus? I really want to get help with my tinnitus." And he said, "Well, there's nothing I can do to help you. Just learn to live with it. I wish you all the best." And that for me was a very big and terrible moment in my life. It was like being pushed off a cliff. And I went into depression and had the most horrendous time. And actually my tinnitus went a lot worse. So one of the main things that can really make tinnitus a lot worse is negative information, like Ben was talking about. So what happened is I very luckily found out about cranial sacral therapy. A friend of my mother's came around one day and said, "Why don't you have cranial work? It'll relax you at least." And I'd never heard about it before, but I had an amazing first session. The guy put hands on my head, and it was like tuning a transistor radio. It started to change the sound, and I said, "Oh, how are you doing that?" I just didn't understand how such a gentle contact could have such a big impact. But anyway, it was an amazing session, and at the end of it, I felt incredibly relaxed, and I felt so much better. I went back again and again, and fell in love with cranial work, and my tinnitus seemed to change. And over the next few weeks, it started to sound a little bit less intense. And because I'd lost my job, I was at a crossroads, and I decided to go to a training in cranial sacral therapy. And I just fell in love with it. I found it really amazing. And as guinea pigs, learning off each other, all the students on the training course, we gave each other a lot of treatments. And it was the next summer, so like 8 months into my training, I had my first experience of silence, which after 20 years of real struggle was like an amazing moment for me. And I thought, well, if I can get better, then other people can. So in that moment, I thought, right, well, I'm going to do my best to help other people. So I set up a practice, and I have been busy ever since working with tinnitus as a cranial sacral therapist. And then I learned how to be a psychotherapist, and I've had a fairly busy practice there too. And I've been working now for quite a long time as a therapist. The good news is that since 2002, I've led largely a tinnitus-free life, which I never, ever would have dreamt of before, having had bad symptoms for a long time. And what helped me get there was coming out of the fight or flight response. And this is a very crucial thing to get with tinnitus, is that the alarm bells are ringing because you're listening out for danger. And in this state, you become so acutely aware of your ears that you end up hearing the buzz of your nervous system. So as a cranial sacral therapist, the role is to help people settle, switch off, and come out of fight or flight and to drop into a much calmer state. So my first tip then, let me just turn this over. So I hope you can see this. This is just to orient you. This is what happens to a lot of people. You get told that you have to learn to live with it, and there's nothing much you can do. There's no cure. This is what I call the no cure model. So there are many therapists, many health practitioners, many people with tinnitus who believe there's no cure, and this creates fear. And you go on the internet, you read horrible things online, you get information for doctors, oh, you can't do anything. And before you know it, you become really terrified and stressed out. And this thing in your head, you think, oh my God, I'll never get out of this. And you go into groups online, and quite often people are often sharing their tales of distress and horror, which is really activating. You know, it's quite upsetting, as you know, hearing other people struggle. And this can actually get you into even louder ringing. You know, the more distressed and upset you get, the more your adrenaline levels rise, and that makes you listen out even more acutely. And so if somebody comes along and says, oh, you're not going to get better, it's a load of rubbish, stop trying to delude yourself, there's no cure, you get this very negative sort of bullying, actually, that helps keep people stuck in negativity. And you eventually get overwhelmed, go into freezing response, and you feel trapped. Oh my God, there's no way out. And you can spiral into this hideous, hideous negative state, which I know what it's like. You know, when you're in this really dark place, you can actually dissociate and space out, and you can feel like you're not sure which way is up, and you get very, very lost and disorientated. So this is pretty horrible. Let's move to a much better outcome. So one of the core things is hearing about other people getting better and having positive information. This is normally what helps people start off with a sense of hope. And, oh gosh, Julian got better, and Aid got better, and Rob got better. Wow, some people, they had it really badly, but they've made a really good recovery. Gosh, how did they do that? And that starts to get people interested. And it's very helpful when you've got tinnitus to get support from your audiologist to make sure that the auditory system's functioning as best as it can, to make sure there's nothing untoward. And once you get support helping you from people who understand what it's about, people who know how to settle you, help you feel safe, calm, and relaxed, your nervous system will go from this very up and out, jangled, hypersensitive alarm bell state to switching off, settling, and feeling safe. When we actually feel safe, calm, and relaxed, so any hands-on body therapist can help you drop into a very calm, safe space. The activation levels in your nervous system can start to settle down, and your auditory system will stop listening out like a parabolic antenna, desperately trying to hear where the lion is. Because we're hardwired to survive danger. If there's a lion over there, seeing it, smelling it, hearing it, will literally can save our lives. So a lot of people with tinnitus are stuck in this state of hypervigilance, hyper-alertness. And so when you settle and switch off deeply, your auditory system can reset itself and go back to quietly ignoring the world. Your ears are designed to hear a voice or birds in the trees. It's not designed to hear the buzz of your brain. The only reason you're hearing the buzz of the brain is because you're too alerted and activated, and you believe that the tinnitus is a monster or something really difficult. So the mindset is everything. So if you get good support and you get help to settle your nervous system, and you come out of this alert state and switch off, then you literally start to lower your adrenaline levels. You come out of the fight or flight and freeze response back into well-being mode. And by well-being, I mean you can sense a sense of calm and ease inside the body. The mind stops racing. The senses stop being so acute. All the activation comes down, and you enter into a much quieter state with your ears. Because it's a body work, getting the body to relax and feel grounded, so you develop body-based awareness, where you can hang out and feel much more at home inside the body. This just helps everything settle. Tinnitus people are up and out and very focused in thinking, and their senses going bananas. But if you can learn to drop down into a much calmer, relaxed body, this helps everything reset itself. You know, having a good diet, having a yoga practice, having a good help with support from therapy, it helps you drop into states where your auditory system can actually quieten down. So I think learning from people who've got better, setting up a good support network, and in particular having that mindset that aims for well-being is hugely helpful for tinnitus. So the second point I want to make is that the body is often the missing piece with tinnitus people. It's a very heady condition. You know, anxious, perfectionists, meticulous people, worriers, stress heads. Tinnitus often takes root in quite heady people, or people who have OCD, and so learning to shift the focus into the body and to get the body to feel safe. So feeling where it is and how it is and hanging out inside body awareness, this is what helps the nervous system come out of fight or flight. So at the end of a yoga class, when everybody's lying on the floor, scanning through the body, all the focusing on the body has really helped them reconnect with it, and they can feel things in much more detail. It's like awareness of the body and knowing how you feel inside the skin bag is what helps switch off the fight or flight response. If you have a hot bath, the hot water drags your attention inside the body, and that's what helps you relax. Instead of catastrophic thinking or anxiety, blah, 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 the warm water pulls the awareness back into the body and really helps you become grounded and much more settled. So learning to develop awareness of the body is hugely helpful, because it's a distraction away from ringing, and more importantly, it switches off the fight or flight response. This is not a quick fix, but it's something you can learn steadily by joining a yoga class, or having cranial sacral therapy, or having a regular daily practice to get in touch with the body. The next tip is, there's some very simple everyday things that switch off the fight or flight response. In medical terms, we have the sympathetic nervous system, which gets us ready for danger, fires everything up. So our heart starts beating, our mouth goes dry, we feel tense and reactive. What you want to do is to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of the nervous system that brings you back into balance. It switches off the stress response. And there's lots of very simple everyday things that do this automatically. For example, yawning, stretching, humming, sighing, singing, giving yourself a facial massage. If you do these very ordinary everyday things, we do all these things when we're happy, or we're switching off, getting tired, getting ready for bed. When you yawn, the little muscles in the auditory system quiver as a little mini workout and release. And you can hear that when you're yawning, because you can hear this purring sound. And you can also hear your ears popping, which is the eustachian tubes opening and closing, which gets oxygen inside your auditory system. Yawning is incredibly contagious. Some of you will be yawning right now because it's good for you. It's a natural way of releasing the ear, nose, and throat system. So it sounds silly and it sounds low tech, but please have a yawn fest every night. Have a really good yawning session. And please start to massage your face and jaw. Learn to de-stress and relax this whole level of your body, because it's directly linked to the auditory system and it starts to bring the irritability down. Think of tinnitus as irritability in your auditory system. So anything you do to bring the irritability down really has a very positive knock-on effect. So if you've got high tinnitus, these things will help and it'll bring it down somewhat. But when you get down to maybe a 1 out of 10, a yawning session can just switch it off. Giving yourself a gentle facial massage or having a really good stretch or doing yoga or Tai Chi, it can switch it off. You know, all of it's helpful. And sooner or later, if you bring your activation levels down enough, then it starts to quieten down or starts to switch off. And then you just know that what I'm saying is right. And you feel a tremendous sense of relief and you feel empowered. And you think, gosh, this is really just a temporary stress-related condition. It can take some time to get down, but get your therapists, your hands-on therapists, to help you switch off and settle, and get your daily practices to help you calm down. And, you know, people make a gradual or steady improvement. So I want to talk about 2 techniques. These are 2 of my favorites. What can we do at home to help us settle when we're home alone in those slightly challenging moments where everything's quiet? Ooh, and you can hear the tinnitus. You know, we all have struggled with that. And so learning to find techniques that calm and soothe you and settle you is crucially important, I think. Very often, if you practice something, the first 5 minutes is difficult, but then once you get into it, you can start to feel things settling. So after maybe 15, 20 minutes, you're in a completely different state. You can feel that you're settled and your responses, your senses have started to reset themselves and come back into peacetime mode. Happy ears are very good at ignoring sound. So you can watch TV at night and fall asleep with tons of noise coming in. When we're happy and grounded and at home and feeling well, our ears are really good at filtering out background information. You're only designed to hear what's important. And in normal circumstances, your hearing switches off and potters along in the background and only latches onto sound when you need to. It's a little bit like when you taste breakfast, when you're eating breakfast, you can taste the coffee and bacon and egg. But between breakfast and lunch, your mouth switches off. It doesn't mean you've lost your ability to taste, but it's not important. So it goes into screen save. Hearing is very much like that. When you're calm and settled, your ears pipe down and ignore the world, and the inhibitors switch on that filter out the perception of sound. This is what peacetime hearing does. So 2 techniques. Walking meditation. You're walking very slowly in a circle. You're in a quiet room, walking as slowly as possible. If you walk very, very slowly, you're going to be doing a bit of a balancing act, feeling your feet on the ground, and you're going to be noticing the lower half of your body. Walking slowly will ground you. Instead of focusing on your ears and on the blah, 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 or catastrophic thinking, whatever, you're going to be doing something very simple and very grounding. So this speed, 1, 2, 3. If you do very slow walking for about 10 or 15 minutes, I can pretty much guarantee at the end of that, you're going to be much more aware of your body, much more centered, and your whole focus will have shifted downstairs instead of up here. So please try that. I lived in Japan for a year. I learned to meditate in an amazing Zazen monastery, and I used to love the walking meditation. And while I learned to meditate over the months that I was there, it really helped me realize that slow movement like that gets all the racing thinking to calm down. It's such a relief when the thoughts slow down and you just feel more at ease in the body. The last technique, you can find these techniques on my app, which is called Quieten, as in quieten down. It's called the boat mast meditation. Tinnitus people are often up and out in their focus, up in the head, sensors out there, troubleshooting, thinking a lot. This brings you back in and down. And what you do is you focus on the feeling of your spine first. So if you sit comfortably and just very gently turn your head from left to right, see if you can feel the physical spine. See if you can feel the neck spine right in the middle. Everything's pivoting around your upper spine. Don't worry if you can't feel it. Sometimes the body is numb, sometimes it's patchy, but you want to just get in touch with your central spine there. And then once you've done that, you do the same thing with the middle of the spine, the thoracic spine. So I find it helpful to do this with your eyes shut, and you just twist your shoulders, and all you want to do is to see if you can feel the spine going down through the middle of your back and find that central pivot there. Even orienting to this is useful. And I know many of you may never have done this before, so it might be quite a new thing. And then the lower spine, you just want to turn right the way around from side to side and see if you can feel your hips and see if you can feel this big, strong, solid lumbar spine in the lower back. It's a very big, strong structure down here. And what you're doing is you're just really shifting the focus into this part of the body. And then I'd like you to imagine there is a boat on a very calm ocean, and the mast of the boat is just very slightly rocking backwards and forwards. This very simple movement can help you feel the whole of your midline, from your head down the spine to the sacrum at the base of the spine. This simple movement instantly helps you feel the whole midline here. And then if you change direction and go from side to side, it feels a bit different. And every once in a while, you just change the direction, really helping you notice the central vertical midline, and see if you can bring your attention down to the ground. So it's like the boat can drop an anchor down through the chair. See if you can feel that midline and feel its pull into the ground. It can be a little bit like a plumb line, or it can be like a magnetic pull or a gravitational pull going down. Let your midline anchor and drop down through the chair into the floor. At first, you may not notice it. Some of you will, some of you won't. You may try this again and suddenly have a really strong sense of midline there. Sometimes you can feel a bit spun out and it can take a bit longer to get a sense of it. But what this technique does, it brings you right into your center and it anchors you into the ground. And your nervous system becomes much more focused. So you can start to feel your own shape. You can feel your feet, legs, the back, the whole of your shape sitting here. And this technique helps you drop down and center yourself. So it's literally a way of shifting your experience or your focus away from here and down into a calm, centered place. And if you practice this little and often, even every time you sit down, you can just move slightly and just get your bearings and check in. It's a very anchoring and centering technique, because what I've learned after working with over 1,000 plus people, I've been working for 20 years as a tinnitus therapist, cranial sacral therapist, and psychotherapist. The one thing that switches off the fight or flight response more than anything is body awareness. And that helps you feel much safer, calmer, and more settled. And that underlying sense of safety in your experience inside your body, inside your skin bag, is what helps the alarm bells quieten down. So I just wanted to share a couple of techniques there. I find practicing techniques incredibly helpful. All the people I work with, I'm forever encouraging them to have a daily practice, to find things they really love doing that help them settle and switch off. So that if you get tinnitus, if it appears, you can just let it be and shift your focus down and help your whole nervous system settle. Coming out of fight or flight really helps tinnitus back off. So if you want to have more techniques, do look at my app called Quieten. There are lots of different things, that all the techniques and practices there that have helped me, have helped my clients let go of their tinnitus. So I really hope that's been helpful for you.
Hey, Julian, I'm back here with you, and we are on the dual view. Thank you so much. I know that we give a lot of information, so people are probably learning some new things, and that's great. I wanted to ask you, and then I will answer the same question. For individuals who may be interested in working with you or finding your app, how can they access that information?
How can they access the the app. If you go onto the App Store or Google Play and just look for Quieten, so that's spelt Q-U-I-E-T-E-N, you should be able to find it. And you can just download it onto the smartphone, and there's a lot of help and support there.
Thank you. And I'm including the links to our websites in the chat for this web class right now. What services do you offer privately?
I do online therapy sessions. I'm a trained psychotherapist, so I can work in depth with people. I do a lot of tinnitus consulting, so people, we have an hour together. I take their case history. Everybody's tinnitus is different. They have a unique situation, so it's very helpful to find out what triggered the tinnitus, get a sense of how bad it was and where they've got to on their road to recovery. And I make suggestions about lifestyle changes or practices that suit each individual's needs. So I've had taxi drivers in London meditating in their lunch hour, businessmen practicing yoga in one of the quiet rooms in the office, or some people have found flotation tanks have been incredibly helpful for de-stressing and releasing. So I try and tailor make every individual person's needs are different, and make suggestions appropriate to their needs. But meditation, learning not to be hijacked by negative thinking, getting the body to come out of fight or flight, having self-soothing practices, learning how to settle the nervous system down with yoga and Tai Chi. These are huge pieces in the road to recovery.